Hey, I used to make a ton of videos on a different channel. Those videos were deleted. I deleted all of them, and I'm kind of trying to start over. And I kind of stopped last year in the summer season. I'm intrigued by doing box office videos and doing like just completely. I like doing videos about the box office, reviewing movies, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna be doing as my first video back. I'm gonna be doing a box office rundown of what Cars 3, Wonder Woman, and more have been doing at the box office. And, well, Cars 3 has been doing alright. Let's jump into that. So, Cars 3. Cars is Pixar's most hated series by far. There's really never been a movie that has gotten a sequel that wasn't asked for. Like Finding Nemo, that was people wanted a sequel for that. Toy Story, people wanted sequels to those. But does anybody really want another sequel to Cars 3? Because the one before that was disastrous and terrifyingly bad. But Cars 3 managed to still hold off in the box office, doing 53.7 million, which is behind the pack. Cars 1 doing 60.1 million in its first weekend, and Cars 2 doing 66.1 million in its first weekend. So Cars 3 landed nearly 10 million under those movies, but it still was able to pull off a pretty decent weekend. The reviews were pretty alright. It wasn't a fresh Rotten Tomatoes score, but it wasn't rotten either. So they can't really blame the Rotten Tomatoes score for it. And I went to the movie, and it was a very quiet weekend at the movies. Like, not many people at the screening. I knew it was probably gonna do in the lower 50s or mid 50s. Thought it could do 60 earlier in the weekend, like earlier in the week. But like as I saw people saying they're not going to see the movie because the reviews aren't ravingly good, then it started to show that 50 million was pretty much 53 million was going to be where it stood. But it still isn't that bad. It still beat The Good Dinosaur. It still beat a lot of other Pixar movies for its first weekend. It was able to hold out the number one spot. Number two was Wonder Woman, and that movie has been doing very well. It was able to do over 100 million in its first weekend. It was only predicted to do 60, and an amazing hold in its second weekend. And it was able to carry on to the third weekend, doing pretty well. It didn't beat Cars 3, but it was still able to pull in 41.3 million into the box office, which is always a good plus. It only dropped about 30%, which was a pretty decent drop. It wasn't a big drop because a big movie did come out, which was Cars 3, but it never really phased Wonder Woman. And next weekend it might be different because Transformers is going up against it, but we'll have to see. All Eyes on Me was able to completely pull a fast one. It was only predicted to do around 10 million when it first got projected, like when it first got predicted, like when people started predicting it, and it was able to pull off 26.4 million. It got pretty bad reviews by the critics, so it's almost bound to fall next weekend. But having this good a weekend was pretty surprising, pretty spontaneous, and the people over there that made that movie should be pretty happy. Number 4 is The Mummy, which took a big drop after its bad first weekend. And it was Wonder Woman just beat it. It beat it by a ton, and it was able to keep its lead this weekend over it. It looks like The Mummy has become a lost cause, and it just needs to die out of theaters. There's really nothing more to say about it. Number 5 was 47 Meters Down. Again, another movie that wasn't taken well by the critics at all. So nobody expected that to do well. And it didn't do well. It did less than it was supposed to do. But, that was pretty expected. So let's move on. And now for the big disappointment. Rough Night was only able to pull off 8 million. That's it. 8 million. It was actually projected to do maybe in the 20 millions before, like, the reviews started coming in. When they started coming in, they were like, let's just go see something else. There were plenty of things to see. Cars 3 probably was a big eater of the audience. Wonder Woman, All Eyes on Me, and even The Mummy and 47 Meters Down could have been pulling it away. And Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man Tell No Tales was able to beat it in its 4th weekend. So, Rough Night did not do well at all, for sure. So, next weekend, we are going to have a pretty big title releasing, and it's going to be called Transformers 5. And it has been getting terrible reviews critically, but it will still debut around the 70 million mark. So don't expect it to flop too bad, but we're not going to start predicting for June 30th weekend, but I can guarantee you now that that's going to take a pretty bad suffering from its first weekend to its second weekend. Number 2 is going to be Cars 3, of course. Probably going to do around 30 million. Probably, I have it marked at 29 million, but 30 million wouldn't be out of the question. It's probably going to have a lot of repeat family viewings, because when families are debating which movie to see, they go to Rotten Tomatoes, and Cars 3 is decent enough. It has a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes as it stands at the moment. It looks like it's going to take a pretty small drop, probably around 44%. Wonder Woman is going to do 25 million, around that area. And that's a pretty good mark, because it's going to take, again, a less than 50% drop, probably in the 40s, which is a good thing for Wonder Woman. It's going to keep holding, even with another competitor coming, and that's a really good thing. So, that was this week's box office rundown. Hope to see you guys next week.